Today's episode is brought to us by Badlands Pets Superfood Complete. Actress Katherine Heigl has saved over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, and she started noticing more dogs with joint, odor, and health issues. And after doing a ton of research, she concluded the one place that we can make the biggest difference is their food. So she decided to create something that she could actually feel good about feeding her dog called Superfood Complete. It has 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital for your dog's health. I have an aging dog, and we always try to find ways to make him more comfortable, help what's left of his joints and body do its best, and diet is a huge part of that. So if you're interested in trying Badlands Pets Superfood Complete, go to badlandsranch.com/ASP right now, and you can get 50% off a regularly priced order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to Badlands Ranch, BADLANDS, ranch.com/ASP. I love a good deal as much as the next person, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be relatively easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called BS on them. Well, turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. It is super easy to switch your wireless carrier to Mint Mobile. They got a great website, easy to purchase, get your phone activated. If you're looking to work with Mint Mobile, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. And you'll see how to sign up for one of their 3-month plans that are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months on premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. That's mintmobile.com/ASP. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional tax, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We talk about all kinds of different experiences that you can have here on the Adventure Sports Podcast, and a lot of them are water-based. And today we're bringing a special opportunity to you through our newest sponsor, The Moorings. The Moorings is the world's premier yacht charter vacation provider. They've been in business for over 50 years and specialize in providing guests with private, customized boating vacations in select destinations around the world. Destinations include the Virgin Islands, Bahamas, St. Lucia, Belize, Tahiti, Greece, Italy, Thailand, and many, many more. And if you're experienced, you can captain the yacht yourself, or you can hire one of their captains to do all the work for you. So whether you know what you're doing out here or you just want to do something totally new, this show is all about new experiences through the medium of adventure. The Moorings are waiting for you. You can learn more at moorings.com, MOORING.com. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode, we're talking to an alumni of the show. Tom has been on 3 other times. We've revisited his episodes before. But the reason he's been on so many times is because we have been following for the last, 6 or 7 years on this journey of 7 years, which he took to walk 28,000 miles to nearly 40 countries, 6 continents, and to see the world, experience life. And he did all this with his best friend and dog, Savannah. And if you follow Tom Turcich, which I highly recommend, his photos of this experience, which he documented this entire journey, his photos are incredible. They're beautiful. He's such a great photographer. Savannah is featured in so many of them. But it has been 2 years since he finished this 28,000-mile adventure in New Jersey, where he started. It's such a cool opportunity to be able to talk to an adventurer, not on the trip, not directly after the trip, but when there's been 2 years of just, quote, normal life to live after something this epic. what has this been like? And so he's been writing a book for this time, which the first reviews of this book are amazing. So what we're going to do, it is a pre-order right now. I'm going to give you a link to pre-order the book. It comes out in October, so this is a little early, but the accolades are already pouring in for those who are reviewing it of saying this is an incredible adventure book. We will be doing a giveaway. So we have a giveaway that's pending now with Glenn Van Pesky from last week, or really 2 weeks ago, talking about his book, Take Less, Do More, which I highly recommend. We actually have a winner for that giveaway. And so the winner for that giveaway, after everyone who's entered it, which all you had to do was enter, was email me, Instagram message, whatever, Facebook message, and I'd put you in a drawing. Well, this winner for the last giveaway with Glenn Van Pesky is Sam G. And Sam, you emailed me. I will email you back letting you know that you won, and I will be mailing a copy. I just need your address, and we'll discuss all that. But now we're going to do a giveaway for Tom's book. The World Walk is what it's called. Beautiful cover, great title, epic journey. It's a memoir about this entire experience and how it got started. If you don't know, Tom's friend Anna Marie died. Jet ski accident, just kind of a freak accident. This just put his whole life into perspective and thought, what do I do with my life? And he decided to walk around the world and just to see this earth. And now he's living in Kentucky, and we're going to catch up on all of this. But it is just such a pleasure to be able to talk to him once again and hear this story. And I cannot wait to read this book because there's so much in it that we will not be able to get to in this conversation. But if you want a copy of the book, link to pre-order is in the show notes. And for anyone out there, email me, Instagram, DM me, Adventure Sports Podcast. Email us, info@Adventure Sports Podcast. Facebook message, whatever you want. Text me if you got my number. Do that in the next 48 hours and we'll enter you for a pre-order, and I'll have it pre-ordered and sent to you. So just let us know. I want to read The World Walk. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Tom's story. I'm stoked to hear this story and what you've been up to the last few years. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm honored to be here as always. Love the podcast. And I'm living in Kentucky where I never imagined myself living after walking around the world. My girlfriend's doing her emergency medicine residency at University of Cincinnati. And we have a nice little historic house here in a historic neighborhood. We got some big trees around us, and go for a walk in the morning. And then I just been chipping away at this memoir for the past 2 years, pretty much. So it's a very different lifestyle than I lived for the 7 years previously.
So I was going to say your background. People can't see that, but I was like, that's a really old door. That's a really old staircase and an old doorknob. I was like, are you in some historic building or museum, or is this where you're living? So Kentucky. Wow, man. Is this the same girlfriend that we heard about last time we talked? You were in Denver last time we talked, and you were dating somebody. And my first question to you in the whole interview was, how do you have a relationship walking around the world? And you were like, it's very new. So, I'm still getting used to this. Is this the same relationship?
Yeah, that's her, Bonnie. So she and I met when I was on the last leg of my journey. So walking across Washington State, I met her in this really tiny little town, Winthrop. She was actually in the town over a mountain pass in Omak. And we just kind of hit it off. And she was on this family medicine rotation there. And it happened to be Labor Day. And I was, finishing up the walk. So I was being lazy and slow. And I said, I'm just going to hang around here for a little bit and hang out with her. And so we actually spent like a week together, like right after meeting. And then she kind of followed me around. She followed me to a town a little bit to the east, Republic. And then she met me again in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. And then she came out to Denver briefly, and then met me again in Pittsburgh after a few months. But so, yeah, she's fantastic. And, we fit very well. She's from Alaska, very outdoorsy. Very smart girl. Obviously, she's a doctor and very kind person. And she's in the memoir as well. She's in there. She's got a chapter in there. She's pretty significant. So it we're in Kentucky, and we're in this historic house, like I said, and the previous owners did, great work with it. So it's well maintained, but it's, it's been a big transition from walking every day.
I want to ask you all about that because I can't imagine. What does she say that you do when people ask, "What's your boyfriend like? What's he do?"
Well, I now it's motivational speaking. That's how I make the money. But now I guess it's writer and motivational speaker now. Definitely after the walk was finished, it was kind of difficult because I was still in that glow. The motivational speaking hadn't really taken off. The writing was, I had a book deal, but it's not like it wasn't.
It takes time. Yeah, I mean, 2 years.
Yeah, it takes time. And the book deal was, a little thing. It wasn't like I got this huge deal that I could live off of, whatever. And so for a little bit after the walk, it was very much like he just finished walking around the world, or she would actually be the one to say he's a writer and speaker, and I would be more reluctant to say that. I didn't really know how to identify. And now after 2 years and speaking's going, and okay, the book is coming out and it is actually a good book, I feel like, okay, I can say, I'm a writer and a speaker. But there's like a transition where this thing that I identified with, the world walk, that my whole identity was wrapped up in since 17, and then all of a sudden it's over. There was this real period of like an identity crisis in a certain way. I remember 3 months after the walk finished, I had this afterglow, and I was just on cloud nine for months, and I'm with all my friends and family, and everything's fantastic, and it's finally complete. But then I had this thought when I was walking to the park with Savannah that it keeps going. And as in life, like life keeps going. The purpose was over, but I still have to keep doing stuff.
You got to feed yourself. You've got to have a shelter and a home. It sucks in a way that it's like, why can't that be the story? And I'm known for that. And there's a monument in my town or whatever. And I don't have to like follow up with anything. Like I can just be my story. It's really, I'm sure, just been an extremely difficult transition. I don't know some of these answers, but we talk a lot to people who do very big things. Sometimes it's a decade-long adventure. Sometimes it's, like you, a lifestyle for a very important part of their life, and then it just ends. And there's a huge dark period that follows that, almost unavoidable. How has that been for you the last 2 years? We don't need to jump into this either if you don't want to.
Sure,
but
no.
I want people to know who are kind of on the other side of this, that are like, oh, I just want to blow my life up and do something like Tom. But they might not be thinking about everything that's attached to that, especially when they already have other things in life, like a family or responsibilities. Like, how has that side of things been for you?
I mean, I think the difficulty from losing that purpose and that direction speaks to the benefit or the beauty of having such a strong purpose and having such a strong motivation. And I think if you have that, it's fantastic. I mean, for me, the World Walk was this absolute, had to do it. I couldn't imagine my life being anything else. And because of that, then I'm able to pass through the jungles of Central America and over these mountains and through the desert and do it for years and years and years, when it got incredibly challenging at points. And without the purpose, there's no way I would have been able to cross all of those hurdles, and they would have seemed like impossible walls to climb. Instead, they were just little hills that were just, interesting stories on this larger journey. And so I think if you have that purpose, or if that fire is really burning in you, I think it's a great thing, because I think it's pretty rare probably to have such a clear drive. There's a lot of interesting things to do in life, and a lot of times that optionality and having 1,000 choices sort of dilutes them all. And then you kind of half in, half out of a bunch of things. And you're kind of second guessing, oh, do I really want to do this? I could be doing this. And it sort of breaks things apart. So if you have that singular direction, like I was fortunate enough to have, it's great. the fallout of it is that when you finish it, when you complete it, it's over, you kind of saw what the other side was like, and this incredible a confidence or resiliency that you get from having a singular purpose. All of a sudden, maybe it's there in a different form, but you lose kind of like your superpower and that hard-headed unstoppability that you had before, and that clarity and vision almost. It was, for me, the World Walk was this way to organize my life. And it enabled me to measure everything else against it, where my choices became obvious, where I, say, out of college, I was dating this girl for years, and I would have loved to have kept dating her and married and lived with her. But we broke up because I knew to do the World Walk, it's what I had to do. We had to end things. And then I lived at home, and living at home was easy because I knew I had to save money. And then I would work as much as I possibly could. There's times I was working 3 jobs at a time because I had to save money and pay off my loans, but it was easy because that was what I had to do to get there. So I had this great clarity in the decisions that I needed to make to achieve this thing. And then when it's over, you lose that clarity and you lose that organization. And all of a sudden you go, well, hey, I could go play pickleball for 2 hours. I could go for a walk for an hour. I could read for an hour. I could, smoke a cigar. I could, read, whatever it is. You could do all these different things. And so you kind of end up losing that path of growth that you had so clearly. So it's very challenging. And when I moved out to Seattle to be with Bonnie, when she was finishing medical school, a few months after the walk was over, I probably fell into the only depression I fall into in my life. And it was really that lack of identity. And then also this sort of incongruence with all these habits that I had built up on the walk, where I was accustomed to waking up, having this purpose, the world coming at me. And it was so ingrained in me, not only like mentally and emotionally, but actually physically. Like I would be in this apartment and saying, okay, you have to write this book. You have to start working on it. And I just could not sit still. I could not sit at a desk for longer than 40 minutes. And even that 40 minutes was just not realistically productive. It was just me trying to gather my thoughts and put something down. And so Savannah and I would walk like 4 or 5 hours a day, even in Seattle, because we just didn't know what else to do with ourselves. And so I got through that period and very gradually sort of adapted and built up these habits. And it was through all these small realizations. I think one of the primary differences from walking around the world versus being in one place is that when I was walking, I was just introduced to newness by virtue of being out in the world.
Every inch was new. Every face was new.
Every day, almost every minute, you're out there interacting with a new person, seeing a new landscape, and the world is just flowing through you. And then when you're in an apartment or when you're in a house or when you're in a neighborhood, you have to go out into the world and you have to consciously sort of make this life. And, with the walk, I had done that. I had made that decision years before, and I was just seeing the effects of it. But then in the apartment, what I was really struggling with was, the world just doesn't come at you. You have to go out into it and interact with it. And so I had to become much more deliberate about going out and sort of building a community and doing the things that I enjoy doing. And also that's a little difficult because you have to sort of know yourself as well. And you have to know what you derive pleasure out of. And sometimes you go to a book club or you go, to the library, wherever it is, and it just doesn't feel as satisfying as, having some random interaction with a stranger on the plains of Kansas or whatever it is that you don't expect. So that was a very difficult thing to handle, but gradually I've adapted, and today I feel very good and derive a lot of satisfaction from working on my book. Like when I was working on it 10, 12 hours a day. And I think that purpose and that clarity and purpose helped me again. And now that it's going to be coming out in October, We got to figure out what the next thing is going to be to align them.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. At Livezen, it's all about making fewer, better things. It's about owning less so you can live more. It's about adventure, finding joy in the day-to-day, and living a well-worn life. And your clothing should support that journey. That's why Livezen has combined technical features, durable construction, and modern styling into functional, versatile outdoor clothing so you can take on everything that the day brings without ever having to change your pants. Go out for coffee in the morning, head to the office for the day, finish the evening off with a post-work cragging session, all in the same outfit. When you buy Livezen, you buy for life. You can get 10% off being a loyal listener to Adventure Sports Podcast with the code ASP10 at livezen.com. That's LIVSN.com. I'm personally a huge fan of the Flex Canvas overalls. I haven't had a great pair of overalls in a while, and I'm actually really surprised by how functional and just useful these are for my day-to-day. I like having that extra almost protection on my chest and around my belt, and I've been doing a lot of house projects lately, and this is just like almost my suit of armor I can put on. Really cool stuff, so I've become a big fan. Gets me in that like workshop mode, and I'm not afraid to wear overalls around town. So again, get 10% off by going to livezen.com, LIVSN.com, and use the code ASP10 at checkout. Warmer, sunnier days are calling, and you can fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. You can meet your wellness goals, have fresh, never frozen meals that are smart, protein plus, even keto, diet friendly, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And having a newborn in the house, any sort of time saving meal option is ideal. And every time we have kids, we do a meal prep service. And for our most recent child, we are choosing Factor meals. They have 30 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week to make your day delicious, from sun up with breakfast to sundowns and snacks and everything in between. There's all sorts of ways to customize it for whatever your dietary needs are. And if you want to try Factor meals, go to factormeals.com/ASP50 and use the code ASP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Again, that's code ASP50 at Factor Meals, FACTOR meals.com/ASP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off next month while your subscription is active. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. People probably haven't experienced this, or obviously haven't experienced this on this scale you have, but we all need some sort of goal, need some sort of purpose. And something so big and so clear as this is, you probably always feel that pressure. People probably ask, what's next? How do you follow this up? And there's that pressure to make something even bigger and grander happen, or it won't be, progress. How do you feel about that? Or how do you answer those questions now, 2 years after finishing what was basically a life work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question and great framing. I think it's true that there is that pressure, and for yourself, I think it just sort of happens naturally, where it's useful to have a goal to help yourself move forward and to help give yourself that sense of progress. But after walking for 7 years and seeing so many villages, you get to these little villages in the middle of nowhere, wherever it was, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Turkey, Uzbekistan. And I had this thought just over and over again, where you realize these generations of men and women existed in these places, and you know nothing of them. And they were farmers or shepherds, maybe they're shopkeep or barber or whatever else it is. And they lived their lives, and then they sort of passed out of existence, passed out of memory. And now the next generation is here. And seeing that, you get humbled in your importance over and over and over and over again. And I think today, with the internet, especially, and then sort of in, I think, the American society in particular, there's this real pressure to be exceptional and to always be doing something remarkable. When you open Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, whatever it is, you're looking at everyone's highlights and you're not seeing the behind the scenes. But then it lays this out where 54 weeks out of the year, someone's on vacation that you know, and you go, why aren't I on vacation all the time? Well, these people are also, they're working, and this vacation costs X amount of dollars, and is it actually financially responsible? They might have stresses that you're not showing, that you have no idea. But on Instagram, it looks like it's the greatest thing ever, and you're not living it. You're not out there doing it. And so I think there's this really ingrained self-aggrandizement or self-importance that I think we don't even realize that we have, and you need to sort of fulfill that, or be striving towards fulfilling that to be worthwhile. And from all this walking, I think it's much more valuable and healthier to really strive to move away from that and remove your self-importance as much as possible, and remove the ego as much as possible. And I think a goal comes in handy, a clear goal comes in handy in just giving you satisfaction in your day and giving you a way to feel some sense of growth and to feel good about yourself, and to give, like I said earlier, that organization to, what are the things you're going to prioritize. But as far as striving to do something bigger and better and greater, I think that if something like that comes, then fantastic, but I think it should be incidental. I think you should be trying to live according to your values rather than trying to, make yourself valuable.
2 years out, what do you think at this point? We have a lot of thru hikers on the show, and they talk about, I realized I didn't need much. You are very much one of those people on a even longer scale. This cart, this baby stroller basically is all I needed for my whole life for 7 years. And they try to implement those lessons for the long term. 2 years out, a lot of the things that will have changed probably have at this point. What have been some skills or mindsets that you think will be different about Tom forever? What are some things that you thought maybe would stick that haven't 2 years out?
I mean, another great question, very thoughtful. I think probably the primary things that'll stay are some really sort of fundamental, like philosophical understandings or base understandings of the world that maybe I didn't have before. And I think one of the primary ones is sort of that ego that you have, that you don't even really realize that you have, and just existing out in the world in other places, you realize how fortunate you are to have your health, to have shelter, to be making like a decent living, to have food in the fridge, to have coffee in the morning. That's something there was like when I was in the desert, I would just take a caffeine pill every morning, and I just didn't want to waste the water. So, it's great to have that. I think some of the lasting ones also is probably this calmness that on a grander scale, you're very small. And also I think I have a greater, like maybe not acceptance, but a greater patience or understanding for other people that I didn't have before. I think coming from, especially the East Coast and from the Northeast and from Philly, it's like rewarded to be a little brash and to be a little emotional. And I really enjoy that, honestly. Like, I love that. It's so much fun. But then when you're 17 or when you're 21 or 25, whatever it is, and you're a young man, you have this irrationality to you that's sort of ingrained that you haven't really dissected. It's just from your culture. It's from, just being young and full of testosterone and whatever else it is. And now I have this, I think, greater calmness that will last throughout me, where I see people getting upset over things where I just like, I couldn't care less about that. I
And that gives you
probably,
more patience with people versus less.
yeah, I say I have more patience because I have people are really small, and that's what you see over and over again when you go out into the world is that people's fates are decided much more by their geography, the political system they're born into, and really just a few small fortunate or unfortunate moments in their life, just chance, then they are driven by willpower or are driven by want to. And, I meet these amazing people, really kind, generous, intelligent people, up on top of a mountain in Guatemala or in the hills of Algeria, wherever it was. And that's where they would be. And I was the one walking around the world meeting them, not the other way around, because I was born with an American passport and I spoke English and I was able to work these jobs that paid pretty well. And I could travel abroad and the currency travels. And so you realize that really people will have like very little choice in their life. And it probably stems even to, small things like political will and, you know, uh, the choice of the car they drive or whatever they get around. It's like, really, it's probably not up to them. We think it is, and it's useful to think that we have free will, but probably we don't. Probably all these greater forces are pushing us and nudging us that really, this is how your life is going to be. And you just can't really see outside of yourself. So I think I have more patience in that way and saying, okay, well, people are just kind of what they are, and it's really the circumstance around them. I would say where the frustrating point is that I've lived a very different life than most people, and so I have, I'd say, a very different outlook on the world than, maybe not even outlook, but I just have very different experiences than a lot of the people that I meet, and it's hard to connect with a lot of people, and so that's a challenge. And so yeah, I'll say that's difficult right now. But I think, and some of my outlooks I've become, I'd say, more like more willing to make like small personal sacrifices for the greater good than I think I would have before, and I think that'll last as well. So it's, I don't know, it's tough to say. And the things that won't last, it's nice to think that a warm shower and the hot coffee and the appreciation of that will last forever. But really, there's no comparison to when you're out in the heat and you're just scorching and you get to a hotel and then you get into the AC. That is like true appreciation that you can never have any other way.
Or running water, or I one of the things, especially here in the U.S. and Western society, is just consumerism and like, just the lack of stuff that I hope to have as part of my lifestyle from here on out. That I can imagine will slowly get chipped away as, we're pretty minimal, my wife and I, and even still, stuff just ends up in our home from family or the kids or just because. And it's like, how does this, it just starts piling up if you're not careful. And you almost have to actively push it out, literally. And so I'm sure that's another one, because you lived in basically a stroller.
Yeah.
Jogger.
Yeah. I mean, the consumerism is really, really challenging to avoid in America. I mean, America is just so incredibly wealthy, and you have such quick access to everything all the time at a very reasonable price for the most part. And so, I think it's a hard thing to avoid. And then if you get a house, you want to fill the house, and if you have kids, you want to get
pictures
your kids
on the wall. You need to repair the 100-year-old doors you have. There's like the things you need for maintaining this, and I'm sure you reach a balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's not attached to happiness in any way, I would say. There's some sort of psychological attachment where I guess you probably compare yourself to your neighbors and you have that like, keeping up with the Joneses aspect of it. But inherently, I'd say that things bring you very little happiness. I was definitely the happiest in my life when I was out walking around the world, and I had nothing basically.
What place do you think of most often?
Probably Turkey. Yeah, Turkey is, I think it was surprising at first because I had walked through Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, which were all Ottoman states at one point, or all part of the Ottoman Empire. They had the Star and Crescent on the flag. And through all of them, I had police escorts. And in Algeria in particular, just because I was there for 45 days, it really wore on me. And by the time I got to Tunisia, I was just so drained from having people watching me all the time and always needing to get to a hotel each night because they wouldn't let me camp. That when I got to Turkey, I was so worried about having a police escort for the length of it. I see the Star and Crescent. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. This is how it's going to be again. And they didn't care. There was no police escort. And it turned out to be just one of the friendliest, warmest countries, one of the best countries for walking that I entered. And so much so that also when COVID happened and basically most of the world was closed, Turkey was one of the few big countries that was open that I could still walk in. So I returned and I spent more time there. And it just continued to bear out where, I probably never felt safer camping, maybe except for in Kyrgyzstan in the mountains when there's no one around. But when I was in Turkey, I would run into these shepherds like almost every night, and I would just camp wherever because I knew when I met the shepherd, they'd be very friendly and they would have a big Anatolian shepherd dog, and that dog would be very friendly, and Savannah would like them. And so I just like never worried ever about my safety there, which is fantastic. And I think we probably have a little warped view, at least I did before going there, of Turkey, thinking as like this really foreign place and the bazaars and Islam, and it's much more like European than you would expect, I think, as the average American. Definitely that's how it was for me coming in, and it was just so warm too, just so nice.
What are you most through this book writing process? What are you most excited to share with people? Maybe it's a misconception that you're trying to talk people through, or maybe it's stories that you haven't ever told, or perspective. What's like most exciting that you want people to read?
I just think it's a great book. I think that's I mean, luckily I'm very proud of it. And
yeah, you're humble too.
My editors,
I'm just
exactly. It made me more humble. No, but I mean, I remember, you work on it so much and you get so close to it that at a certain point you like stop being able to see it even because you're just pouring yourself into it. And at a certain point I had to give it to my editor, like after writing it for a while, give it to my editor, and I stepped away from it for 3 months. And then it finally came to a point where, okay, it's time for me to go back and read it. And I came to it with fresh eyes and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And, you question yourself like, this, what I'm most excited about is just it being a good adventure story, a good story. And this is also part of, the whole growth in walking and being out on my own for a while, is that I really tried to remove my ego. And when you're writing a book, I think any book, the instinct is you want to share as much as you can with the reader. And when I would be writing these chapters, say in Mexico or El Salvador, there's these little things, these little details, which for me are like super interesting and important and unique only to that place and my experience in that place, but it doesn't just fit the story. So you have to cut it out. And so I really tried.
A lot of y'all know I work for Athletic Brewing Company through my day job, and we use Shopify for our e-commerce platform. And Shopify is so helpful because even when we were a tiny little startup, just a couple employees, we were using Shopify. And now as we've grown to one of the biggest breweries in the country, well, we're still using Shopify. They make it so easy to grow. And I actually am recommending it to anybody starting a business, big or small. Definitely go with Shopify. I have a ton of firsthand experience with this global commerce platform, and it helps truly at every stage of the business. I've seen it firsthand. Whether you're auctioning off one of a kind things like autographed apparel or sports memorabilia, baseball cards, or selling skis, like it really doesn't matter. They can help you at any stage of business and sell anywhere. I host a podcast through my day job, and we host the podcast and put it all on there on our blog on the website. It's great. We can put different surveys online, and there's all sorts of apps that go into it. It's really user friendly and very robust. If you want to sign up for their $1 per month trial period, go to shopify.com/ASP, all lowercase. Shopify.com/ASP now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Again, that's shopify.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcast.
To do right by the reader and remove my ego as much as possible and just tell the story as clearly and as directly as I could, and kind of know that that's enough. And I think there's this really natural growth that happens in the book that I was trying to get across, because I laid out right away in the prologue this relentless unfolding of the self and this relentless change that happens when you're constantly experiencing this newness and these new cultures and these new places. And I think that growth is pretty apparent in there, and hopefully give the reader some of that growth. So I'd say I'm very excited for that. And I'm just excited to get it out there and then, get on to whatever's next. I think it's a great story and does Savannah justice, hopefully. She's incredible, first dog to walk around the world. I think it does her justice. But it was just satisfying to write, satisfying thing to work on.
I can imagine it brought back memories and stories and details that, one, you're really excited to have the chance to share with people. Like even an hour interview, we basically can get through like 3 pages of a book, more or less. And with a few hundred pages, you're going to be able to really capture this and say exactly what you want to, and have that for people to take and consume on their own terms. And you're not necessarily in charge of making sure you tell that in each individual person. It's like, here's the book. If you really want to know, here it is. And I'm sure that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of pain as well. And I know recently there's you've been a loss for you, and pretty important loss. I don't know, we don't have to talk about this, but I know that your partner in this, your best friend, not long after it started having health issues, and ultimately Savannah passed away. I don't know how that has been. I'm sure that's been just darker than anything you can imagine.
Yeah, it's been I guess like almost 2 months now since she passed, and it's it's this strange, it's this bond that is unlike any other, and we spent every minute of every day together basically for 7 years. And when we set camp at night, it was her that was by my side. She was the constant through everything. And so I think what made it difficult was that, yes, I'm losing basically my companion, my best friend. And it also is like this closing of a chapter that I wasn't expecting to close. She was 9 when she passed, just turning 9. And so it kind of happened quicker than I was expecting. But also, I think what made it really painful was that she died of Lyme nephritis, so Lyme disease ultimately. And then she has a genetic predisposition because of her breeds to nephritis, which is like basically fatal if you get it. So she had a little Labrador in her, so that made it. But for those 7 years, in a way, she protected me. She protected me, from loneliness and probably maybe robbers or thieves that never manifested just by her presence. But also I was protecting her. She was like my kid. And every day I was defending her against, the elements, mean dogs, people who didn't like dogs, societies that weren't as friendly to dogs. And so I was always had this like protective stance when it came to Savannah, where I was the one defending her. And then when she passed, it was like, oh, you failed. You didn't protect her from this. And so I think for the first month, like this really, really heavy guilt. And
Like thinking it could have been preventable if I would have paid more attention or something.
exactly, yeah. And, it's the world is just chaos in a certain way, and she lived this incredible life. And, that's how I think about it. Cause I also know like you can't live with the guilt. You can't, it's just not healthy. So I tried very deliberately to get myself out of that. And also, we were just outside all the time. I was bit by 10,000 ticks. She was bit by 10,000 ticks. And, she had the tick collar on her, flea collar. I'd use Bravecto or whatever they had in that country. Sometimes it was off-brand stuff and it just was not good. I remember a few times I would, get her this flea collar, the tick collar, and it just wouldn't work. And she'd, have these ticks. And, we were just outside all the time. And, is what it is. And so I know that, but then also there's that protector, which was really hard to reconcile that, she passed. And, but at this point, times, a little time's gone on. And I can see now, I wrote a post about this recently so I was out walking in the morning, and I would take this walk. It's like a 45-minute walk or whatever. And I'd walk with Savannah. And, I'm just like, you kind of I would see her at my side. And I had this memory of reaching down and rubbing her ear where it's really soft on the tip. And I think before that moment, that all the memories were bringing me a lot of pain. And then I sort of realized, oh no, it's like, this is why you did the world walk. This is why you got her, is so you could have the memories. The memories are like, instead of pursuing the things, you got the memories. So the memories were where the value is. When I thought about doing the world walk initially, it would, part of the motivation was so when I'm older, I could have all these things to look back on and recall and stories to tell. And, Savannah's a part of that, so I feel really blessed now to have, been alive and to have lived my life in parallel to her and to, have memories of her.
Oh man, probably the most epic life a dog has ever lived, and didn't even know it. Like hey, we're just going on a walk. That was a turn that when I started seeing that on social that she wasn't doing well, I'm like, this is so wild that she got through this whole experience, and now's the time. It was so soon. It almost felt like if this was a movie script, I'd have felt like, no, that's too. It's too obvious, or that's too, that can't happen like that. Like that's just too cliche almost. Like you get through it and then you deteriorate and pass away. But that's your life. That's really what happened. Like I can't imagine, not long after finishing this thing that was your life with her. Like I just can't imagine the sense of loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like she was just here to walk around the world with me, and that was it. And then she, bounced, and then she said, "All right, I'm out of here." I did it. And
she was like, "I ain't going to Kentucky," just so you know.
Yeah, this is where we're living. I'm out of here.
Sorry, everybody in Kentucky. I love Kentucky.
It's great. It's great. No, but I remember having this thought when, like in January or something like that, or maybe in February, and we were here in the house, and she was on the sofa, And we would walk probably like 2 hours a day, walk an hour in the morning, maybe an hour in the evening, something like that. And the rest of the time she's just inside, or, she's sitting out front, whatever it is. But I remember thinking, like, what kind of life is this for a dog? And I also carried, I feel like, an unnecessary guilt from having lived this extraordinary life with her, that I needed to always be providing that for her, that I always need to be like giving her as much experience and things of interest and just as much life as possible. And I remember, yes, like standing here in the living room thinking, what kind of life is this? Like, it's just so boring for her, even though, she was 8 and this is her retirement, and she probably, enjoyed it, and we were together and it's great. But, she lived an incredible life for those 7 years. And she had 2 years of retirement, and then she washed her hands of it, washed her paws of it, and said, that's that. I saw enough of things. But yeah, I mean, also, you were saying, like, in 1 year of walking was like, 10 years or whatever, or like a lifetime of memories. And I like really feel that, where I remember, like, towards the end of the walk, I said 7 years, those 7 years felt like 20. Like, truly, it was just so packed that a year of walking, I mean, compared to a year of sitting here inside, felt like it lasted, 5 times the length. And so Savannah, even though she, lived 9 years, she may as well have lived, 40 years, 50 years. Yeah.
What place do you think Savannah liked the best, or what moment or types of moments or season that was she was probably the happiest?
She'd love the snow the best, for sure. That was her favorite weather. But Kyrgyzstan, like, without a doubt, was her favorite country, because we were just roaming these mountain valleys where she could be off leash all the time, running around, like, no cars to worry about, no noise, glacier rivers and lakes. And, that was like, if you're a dog born in Kyrgyzstan, you are living a good life. That's if there's heaven on
You
earth.
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, those shepherd dogs don't know how good they have it.
That is that phenomenon of time slowing down with your brain processing newness and making decisions and problem solving constantly is definitely a phenomenon we talk about a lot, especially with people like you who take a journey. Another one that comes to mind, which I know you're friends with, is Alistair Humphreys. Dude, this is so cool. This is like being able to talk to Alistair pretty much right after his 4-year journey around the world. But your journey's, 3 years longer, and we're getting this kind of look into what it's like. We don't always get this chance where we talk to people, at this point past this huge journey, which is such a cool opportunity. In the last 2 years, have you noticed a difference in how time is perceived? Like, has it just been sped up with kind of more of a routine every day, or you still, because you're doing all this newness still, writing the book, processing all these memories, it hasn't quite felt that way? Or have you noticed time quickening?
It definitely, yeah, I would say it definitely quickens, for sure. Without a doubt, it quickens. And it's definitely, the routine is part of it, where, you're just doing, maybe you're working on different things each day, but it's in the same place, and it's probably interacting with the same people, and, taking the same walks, seeing the same neighborhood. So it definitely quickens. And then I think another aspect of it is, with just sleeping inside each day, strangely, really artificially truncates each day in a way that sleeping outside doesn't. When you sleep outside, you get this natural flow from one day into the next. And it sort of takes away, like, the weight, the significance of any single day. But when you sleep inside, it feels like at the end of each day, you go to bed and you go, okay, this is bedtime now. And I'm going to turn off my light, or I'm going to read a little bit before I go to bed. Then I turn off my light, and I go to sleep, and then I wake up and I do it all again. And everything is sort of organized around this. What did you do today? How productive were you? Did you do enough today? And are you allowed to feel satisfied with today? And you go to bed and you have those thoughts. Was I allowed, did I do enough today? Was this good enough? And when you're outside, it doesn't really happen. And maybe it's just the wind and the birds and the sun slowly setting and then the sun slowly rising and then crawling out of the tent, breaking down the tent, all that. But it adds a softness to your days, which is missed inside. So I think living the past couple of years, living with this delineation, the sharp delineation with each day, it is a little more uncomfortable, and that itself also, I think, speeds up time because you're measuring your days more.
Dude, I'd never really even thought about that, but I have a bad habit of staying up really late, like 1, 2 in the morning, thinking I'm trying to be productive, but really wasting time and not sleeping. And my wife finally called me out like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. She's like, you know what it is? And I'm like, what? She said, you don't feel that you've been productive enough today. And so you're afraid to like close the chapter of today because you feel like that's basically given up on my ability, getting things done for the day, or masquerading, researching somebody for a podcast interview on YouTube, and then you get sidetracked and scroll, doom scroll for an hour. She goes, you're afraid to like admit that the day's over. And I'm like, holy crap, I think you're right. Because when I do camp, I never feel that. And I go to bed way earlier because, it's dark. It's harder to just navigate through. There's, you got to carry your light around with you. That's wild. That's probably what it is. And I'm sure that's been a really hard adjustment, having to sleep inside.
It's so funny that you experienced that just recently. Yeah, I mean, it feels like that. Yeah, the days feel a little more boxed in when you're boxed in. They feel a little more artificial. And I mean, I don't know. I haven't figured out how to resolve that either. It's like, do you sleep with your windows open? Do you just it's hard to go to bed when the sun goes down when you're inside because look, we have lights and there's a television and you could just artificially keep extending the day. So I haven't figured out how to solve that aside from sleeping outside. So maybe I'll sleep on the back deck more often.
I know we've talked about Alistair Humphreys, but he has transitioned from this grand adventure mindset to extremely, extremely, extremely granular in how he views adventure. Like square feet literally is like one of the metrics he's using now with his new concept and book called Local. I could see you making that kind of adjustment too. Someone told me a few years ago, like there's something to be said about pouring your life into one place and going really deep. And at the time I was like, there's no way. Like there's no way I'll get to that mindset. Well, do you see yourself maybe thinking that way in the future, or is it just, too hard to say at this point?
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alistair, I think went a long way for me too. I got Local, pre-ordered it, got it when it came out, read it. I think it's sitting by my bed and on my bookshelf there. And the whole premise of that book is fantastic and it's really well written. If you haven't gotten it yet, I would recommend it. And not you, but the listeners.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I definitely understand absolutely the appeal to it because I think it's probably again that search for newness and going out into the world deliberately and sort of driving that newness into you more consciously than what happens with adventuring. So it's sort of a different form of it. But definitely it took, it's a part of me. I should probably be more active in it. I have this book called Walking Cincinnati, and it just has these interesting neighborhoods that you can go to and explore and has these walks lined out and the historical points on them. And I've done a few of them. I should probably do more of them. I think what I struggle with is that I'd say I'm very jaded and I have too many opinions where I would like not to have a lot of opinions. And
about
mostly about just American urban design. And we're just like, again, we're such a wealthy country and we use the money so poorly. It's unbelievable. And like half of downtown Cincinnati is just a parking lot. It's just parking lots and parking lots and parking lots. And then there's just highways cutting through it and all over it. And it's really difficult, to be in other places. Almost every other country is really good at just making piazzas for people, making pedestrian areas for people, and building those third spaces where you can go and have this community around. And so I think a lot of places in the US really lack this. I want to say organic community, but it's actually not organic. It's actually engineered by the way the neighborhoods are built and the way the traffic flow is constructed and the way if there's public transit, which in the US is basically non-existent in most of the countries. And so rather than feeling like you arrive at a place, you get to experience a place as you're passing through it. And I think that's the difference, is that in the US, everyone is going somewhere to, okay, I'm here now and I'm going to get something out of this place, rather than, all right, I'm just going to pass through this place and here's another place on the way. I get to enjoy that. And so, I think it's difficult for me to, when I was walking around the world, I could just experience places without judgment and just take them for as they are. But now I'm in my own home country. I have walked around the world. I've seen other places. America does some things better than other places, and other places do other things better. And once you see the better ways, it's hard to not see what's lacking in your home that you want to improve naturally. And so, as far as diving into local, like Alistair did, I really admire that. And I should do it more because it'll probably give me a greater appreciation for wherever it is that I'm at. But right now I'm having a hard time turning off that that bias that I have.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the book. It's coming out October 8th. The reviews have been, I'm sure, humbling to you. This is apparently an incredibly good book, especially for your first book. Where do you think that have you always been a good writer? Is this just the quality of the story and just the passion behind it? Where do you think that's coming from? Obviously it's an amazing story, but like the reception so far and the excitement around it is really high.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I've been writing for years, actually. So I started after college. Before college, during college, I had no interest. And then after college, I remember reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in bed. I finished at like 2 a.m. And I remember it's like, if I was going to write a book, what would it be? And this idea came to me for this sci-fi novel. And so I was up to like 4 a.m. writing down the idea for this. And then I promised myself I would write it, and I wrote it, and it was horrible. And then I wrote it again, and it was horrible. I mean, the first draft was so bad that my mom, I don't think, got like 15 pages in before she had to like put it down. So for those years before the walk, my primary hobby was writing. I took it really seriously. I would go to the library for 8 hours a day. So I was working for every year after college, except for the last year before the walk. I was working installing solar panels, and it was this job where you'd work for like 3 months and then you'd have like 2 months off, and then you'd work for 2 months and then you'd have a month off, and then you'd work so you had these periods where you would work 50, 60 hours a week, and then you'd have off for months. And whenever I had off those months, all I would do was just write. I'll go to the library for 8 hours a day. I would write 5,000 words every morning, whether it's garbage or not, and then I would study for like 4 hours. And so up on my in my bedroom on this bookshelf that I have next to me, I have probably 30 writing books, whatever, and they're all marked up, they're all noted. So it was very deliberate. And then when I started the walk, it was this whole different style of writing. And in the beginning, I didn't know how to write from the first person. And gradually through walking and writing these blog posts, I got better at writing that. And then naturally, walking around the world, you get some great stories. And so I'm fortunate enough to have like great ingredients for this pizza that I'm putting together, just the book. And from the years of practice before, I think I have a decent ability to put it together. But yeah, I mean, I've been very surprised, I would say, and excited and humbled about how well it's been received so far. I'm doing as well as I can, as everyone is. And I wrote the book, I gave it to my editor, and all of a sudden the publisher found all this extra money for other things, for another proofreader, for maps, for, let's do a nicer cover. All right, we should do that. And it's like, oh, okay, like they actually really believe in this. And and then the few people who have read it have given glowing reviews. I've only had, I guess, 4 people outside of the publisher beat it. One of them's Bonnie. They all gave reviews. They're all good. And I'm excited for it. I think I should think it's a great book. I do think it's a great book, but I think it offers a little bit of everything. I think it's just a great, simple story. And there's a lot of good lessons in there that hopefully don't hit you over the head, but that just occur naturally from being out on a big adventure. And there's some great photography in there as well. There's the photos that I took from around the world.
My wife and I scrolled through your photos the other night when I saw we were talking, and she I mean, usually she'll look at my phone and like, look what I'm, showing you. And she'll like, oh, yeah, that's cool. She just wanted to keep scrolling and going through it and seeing the pictures of Savannah and Azerbaijan and all over Europe and Asia and South America. And we scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and read the captions. It was legitimately close to an hour. We did that. Your photography is unbelievable. Your style, it's man, those are some, I mean, you're going to scroll through that and just remember things. And
yeah,
what an amazing way to capture this story.
Yeah, it was kind of the only, I mean, at the time it was the only way, really. It was just the easiest. I could carry my camera. It didn't take much effort. If I saw something beautiful, interesting, I would take a picture of it, and do that for 7 years to get better at it. If you go way back, you can see the early photographs and they're not that good.
So if I thought about writing a memoir of my life and the things I really wanted to tell at this point, I don't have a story like that, but there would be people that I would, there'd be things I want to say that I'd be kind of nervous about telling people or letting out in the world. Is there anything that you're maybe wondering how it's going to go over, or people you're worried about reading this, or not worried, but like there's a little bit of nervousness around it? Obviously, Bonnie, someone you're very close to, read it. I'm sure she learned a lot about you through that. Is there any fear along with the excitement going on, or like, how is this going to be viewed?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think in the early chapters, that's maybe where I'm most worried, especially the first chapter that I get into Mexico. It's very interesting, and I've never shared the story before, so it's a good chapter, interesting chapter. But I think my naivete, my ignorance early on is really apparent, and I want that. I want to share that. I want that to come through. Just how little I knew of the world and of how to handle myself in the world, how to navigate the world. But also there's a worry where, I did make some mistakes, but that's kind of part of it. So that, I'd say, was the section that I'm maybe where I go, okay, how is this going to be received? But I think when you read the whole story, it comes into context. And also it's just the truth. I was a kid from a very protected, idyllic suburb in South Jersey, and I was an idiot. I didn't know anything of the world, and the only way to learn about the world really is to go out and exist in it and to make mistakes. And so I think that comes through. But yeah, I mean, it's called The World Walk. You can get it on Amazon, get it on Barnes and Noble. You can go to my Instagram by the same name, The World Walk. There's links in there. Like you said, the reviews have been good so far. So hopefully that beginning is in place with everything else and received nicely. But there's some great stories in there, stories I've never told before. And I think if you get it, it'll be a good book club book. Great reading.
For the average person, the average reader, what are you hoping is one boiled down lesson or boiled down perspective that you hope that everyone walks away with?
That you don't need to do anything. Life is interesting enough. I like this. It goes back to our conversation earlier where we talking about this pressure to be exceptional and to do something exceptional and to be more than you are. But you're only living one life. And the world is beautiful and there's nice people in it and it's interesting and there's all sorts of great food and there's all sorts of great sights. And if you just live your life, that is enough. So I would say, don't put so much pressure on yourself and, relax a little bit.
That's a great perspective. Take it from you. You've seen so many people, but take it from the guy that's walked through nearly 40 countries and 25,000 miles. You just do what you want to do. You've seen an example of life probably in nearly every way it can be lived, and the good and the bad, the highs and the lows, the healthy and the unhealthy. So I'll take your advice on that.
Yeah, we're all only human. That's it. We're limited creatures. Try and get outside. Don't
go for a walk.
Don't try and crush yourself into being an automaton or whatever, of efficiency, and be nice to yourself and be nice to other people, and really just, embrace your humanity. Can
I ask you for a piece of advice real quick?
Yeah.
I tell my kids, I'm not sure this is a fully thought through philosophy, but I want to get your thoughts on it. I boil it down and I ask them all the time. I was like, what do I want you to be? And they say, a kind problem solver. And I said, that's it. Just kind problem solver. And I think that's all I want them to do. I'm not sure if that's covering everything I want, but I think pretty much everything's in there. I think the kindness filter needs to be first and then the problem solving, because, Hitler was a great problem solver, but the outcome was awful. So running it through that almost forces you to be kind. Like kindness isn't it's a choice, You're not always feeling like it, but that includes being kind to yourself. But after seeing the people that you've seen and the way you've seen life, what would you add to that or take away? Or
no, I think that's great. I think that's great framing, and it really is boiled down really to the basics where be kind, and then problem solving is universal. Whether you're a shepherd, whether you're an engineer, whatever it is, try and contribute a little bit, try and improve things a little bit, and think about that way. Think about the world critically, and try and improve on it. So I think, and that would provide a lot of purpose as well. If you're whatever problem solving you're doing. So I think you got it covered. I love that.
I did have a friend say, well, problems got a negative connotation. I was like, okay, I'll add this. What are problems? Opportunities to learn. So I have them add that as an appendix or an addendum. But, just that's all life is. I'm hungry. I got to eat. I got to find somewhere to sleep tonight. My tire's flat, whatever it is with you. Where's Savannah? You know what I mean? Figuring what are the problems. Every day, everything is a problem. And this is it, man. We're pretty much done. But did you bring any cells in for Philadelphia Signs? How are they? Are they still support? Honestly, how was that experience? I felt
if they got one sale out of me, then it was worthwhile because they do big projects. So if they got one sale, which they probably did from me, got plenty of press. They're going to get more press with this book. If they get one sale, they made their money.
That's so cool, man. I loved seeing them. I'm like, I don't know the relationship behind the scenes, but I was like, yeah, it just feels like someone you knew that was like, yes, we want to support Tom doing this. This is so cool.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They knew my friend who passed away, went to school with his sons. Yeah, Emory, and that was it. They opened up an international branch at the same time that I was about to do the walk. Like, oh, this is perfect. Like, we donate money into their scholarship fund, her scholarship fund, and support you. So very, again, just like, a moment of good fortune at the right time.
That's so cool. Well, Tom, I'll let you know when this comes out. Was there anything else you wanted to share? Anything you wanted to cover that we didn't?
No, I appreciate it. It was it was a great conversation, covered everything. I'm looking forward to sharing it. I think it was really good conversation.
I'll let you. All right, Tom, thank you. Have a good day.
See you, Mason.
Right, see ya. Bye. First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.